Welcome to the Peak Potential Success Show. My name is Fong, and today we have another great guest. He's been helping a lot of individuals, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, leaders of all levels realize their identity, reach their peak potential, break through barriers, reach unparalleled growth, and of course, unlocking that peak potential that they all have. He's worked with some of the biggest companies, Fortune 500 companies, HCA Healthcare, State Farm with their leadership team, with their team development. Also, he's been able to come up with this roadmap to significance with six very, very important questions, which I'm sure we're going to jump into, helping people dismantle their limiting beliefs and again, unlocking their true potential. He is the founder of Right Now Leadership. So please welcome leadership expert, best-selling author, international speaker, mindset coach, and the Limitless Leader, Mr. Rick Torrison.
Man, I'm done. Drop the mic. That was amazing. Oh, thank you so much. It's so good to be here. I'm gonna record that, and I've done a lot of podcasts. I think that's the best introduction and most hype I've had, man. So thank you so much. Honored to be here. I'm excited. I love your podcast, the peak potential, right, man? How do we get the most out of who we are, what we are, and where we're going, right? How do we level that up and leave the biggest impact and have the greatest influence? And that's what this is all about. And so I'm excited to be with you today and hopefully add some value to the people that are listening and have a little fun along the way.
Awesome. Well, very, very excited to have you here as well. And just speaking in the green room there, I mean, like somebody with your energy, I have to up my energy level in order to kind of
Come
have
on.
that balanced out, or else it's no fun, right? But before we jump into all the like nitty-gritty stuff about leadership and mindset, how did you get to where you are? How did you decide that leadership and mindset and this type of stuff is your way to go?
Man, great question. And I will try to condense this with words, right, to give you the cliff notes of the process. But I got to start kind of way back. Single parent family, single mom, grandma raised me. Dad was never in the picture. Always had to be very independent, strong-minded, strong-willed, take care of myself at a young age as we're growing up. And so that kind of set the tone. My mom was an encourager, amazing woman, one of my heroes, and my gram, really worked hard to provide a life for me that I was able to build and grow from. But it was anything but easy. It was a difficult process. There was a lot of things that happened in that journey with her, with me, that marked me along the way. And as I was growing up, what I realized is because of the situation I was in, I always had to put on this mask like it was all together, all in control. We could go one of two ways when life hits us like that, right? We can withdraw and try to hide and not be seen and just go through life because it's hard, or we can kind of put on that mask and get in the front of the line and say, "Hey, I'm here," and 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 go that way. And that's kind of the direction I went. But I realized over time as I was going through that mask I was putting on, we talk about imposter syndrome a lot. I didn't have a clue about all that. But there was that place where I was trying to project strength, confidence, courage, leadership, ability, and inside I'm dying the whole way, right? Because I don't actually believe what I'm putting out there on the outside. And that was okay for a while, but what I realized, there was a pattern over my life that every time I'd start to become successful, captain of the basketball team, whatever it was I'm doing, right, all through life, it'd start to be successful and people started noticing, I would run. I would do something to say, "Hey, time to get a new job. Hey, I'm going to move over here," because I would feel the pressure of actually having to live up to that expectation that I was setting, right? And so through that, I realized I just had this wake of broken and damaged relationships, jobs, things along the way that I was leaving in the wake. And I was like, I was tired of it. I was like, I can't keep living this way. And so I had a coach. This is 30, over 30 years ago, 35 years ago. We call him a mentor, coach. I don't know what language we used back then, but I had someone in my life who began to challenge me about what I was thinking, what I was doing, where I was heading. And so that began to get me to think differently and wonder why I was settling for less in my life. And I had this wake of just leaving, running from things in this history. And I was about 25, 26 years old. And it came down to I met this young lady, and she was the woman of my dreams, man. I wanted to marry her. I was like, this is it. And I go to propose to her. The day I'm going to propose, we go to dinner, great restaurant, got the ring. the whole thing. I proceeded to make her so mad at me that she was done with me, right? We're driving home and she's figuring out how do I end this thing? And I'm going, how did I do this again? Realizing in that moment for the first time, my eyes were wide open, going, I really want to spend my life with her. And I just sabotaged it like I'd done everything else up to that point. I thought, man, that's not okay. Right. And so, long story short, we worked it out. I overcame that. I repented and apologized and gave her the ring and I proposed. But I had to make a shift of going, this is not okay. There is a belief I have that is keeping me from this which I really desire. And so that was my first time to press through this instead of run. And what I realized in that process was I had beliefs that I had created in my life that were creating ceilings over my life that were causing me to settle for something less than I was actually born and created for. And so that was the journey for me. And when I think about leadership and leading through this process, I realized leadership is not so much a position, title, and paycheck. It is, and it's not just about authority and people that follow you, right? At the heart of leadership, at the core of leadership, it is actually about a posture and about character and about how I show up in the world. Because I do believe everyone is a leader because my definition of leadership is about influence, our ability to influence and impact people towards movement. Now that's neutral, Fong. That's like, yeah, I can move you in a negative direction, I can move you in a positive direction, but it's the ability to influence people. And here's the thing, we are influencing people all the time whether we realize it or not, either intentionally or unintentionally. The question is, what direction are you leading people? And so those are the questions that started percolating and realizing, man, everyone I'm working with as an educator, I was a school teacher for a while, I was in ministry for a while, I started several businesses, had a coffee shop, a commercial cleaning company, and then I went into leadership development and really focusing and honing in on what is leadership. What does that look like? And what keeps us from actually reaching the limitless potential that I believe we had? You talk about peak potential, I talk about limitless potential, right? There is more in us than what we realize, know, or understand. And so that started driving that question of what is it that keeps us from our peak potential? What is it that keeps us from that ultimate life of not just success, but significance that ripples beyond us. And so that what provoked me. That's the questions I started asking. That's the reality I had to work through because I wasn't living it. And so through trial and error of my own life, I then began to build this organization and company and business around helping individuals and organizations identify limiting beliefs, break through those, replace them with limitless ones, and then build roadmaps to actually success and significance. Long answer there, but that's how I got to where I am and what I'm doing today.
That is incredible. So right before you decided to start this company with all the leadership stuff, what were you doing? Was it the coffee shop? Was it the teacher? Like what was that right before?
So great question. Longer story, and I'll try to give you the summary here. So I have two children. My son's 30, my daughter's 27. They were both adopted at birth. Part of this story for me with them is they were also conceived in violent acts, in rape, right? That was their conception. We knew their birth moms. We adopted them. I share that with you and your listeners because part of my belief in leadership and this idea of limitless life and potential and mindset is that my children were growing up, even though they were in a loving home, we were there, extended family, the whole thing. They still had to work through this feeling and understanding of being abandoned by someone. Even though they were welcomed by someone, there is still that innate thing. Why did my mom not keep me? And then how was I conceived? And what did that look like? And so I share that because there was a window of both of my kids' life that covered about 12 years that they both really struggled. My son was suicide, my daughter with kind of homelessness and searching for who she was. And this is from, you know, my son basically age 9 to about 22, my daughter about age 15 to about 23, just a few years ago. I say that because that caused me, I was an educator, I was in ministry, had nonprofits I was doing, but was also in education. I left all of that. I had a commercial cleaning company and a coffee shop that supported ministry stuff that I was doing. And my wife, we have a staffing company that my wife was running, and it's been around a long time. That was our primary income. Again, I share all that to say when my kids got to a certain age, they fell apart. And so our goal was, how do we keep our kids alive? Right. And not literally alive, right? How do we make sure that they're okay through this season? And so I left everything I was doing and became a full-time stay-at-home dad because I was a teacher. I could homeschool. And it was first my son, got him through stuff, and then my daughter, but it was about a 12-year window. So there was a 12-year window that I didn't do anything except take care of my family. I served things, I did some nonprofit work, but I let go of leading and growing and building. And my wife kept building the staffing and doing that because that was where she was at. When they got healthy is when I asked myself a question, what do I do now? I've been out of this market of building and growing, and now I'm mid 40s, going on close to 50, and I'm going, I don't want to go back and teach. That really wasn't my passion. And what do I do? Again, long story short, I began to realize that people would come and talk to me and ask me questions about their business, their life, their job. I'd go to coffee shops. They'd sit down in front of me and say, hey, and they knew me. Can you help me? I'm wrestling with. And I realized in that moment, as I was searching for what I do, is I help people unpack the challenges that they're facing, help them identify the roadblocks, help them remove those, and then actually build a process to their future. And I was doing that, not even knowing I was doing it, but that's what I was doing. And I said, man, I think there's a business there. I think there's a life here that I could build. And so I started building that, doing that with people. I had one guy said, hey, do you coach? The first guy, when I first started, he said, hey, do you do coaching? I had done no coaching. And I
I do
said,
now.
I said, absolutely, I coach. He says, great. Can you give me a proposal and let me know what it would cost? And he's a business owner. He had three businesses and he had started a coffee shop and he knew I had had history with that. And he didn't know how to do the coffee shop. Oil and gas? Yes. Coffee shop? No clue. Right. So I said, yes, I can create a proposal and do all that. So I get online and I'm looking coaching, framework, contracts. What do you charge for? And I write a whole thing up. Hadn't done it yet. We meet. I hand it to him. I put a price on there that for me was like, man, there ain't no way he's going to do this. I'm just going to throw this price on there. He takes 2 minutes, looks at it, reads through, looks at the process. It's great. When can we start? And I was
Wow.
like, tomorrow. And then when he handed me, so we started, and I was so nervous about this and charging for this and just trying to figure it out. This is about 15 years ago that I made it a business. And we started coaching. I sat down, we're going through stuff. He goes, hey, wait a minute. I hadn't paid you yet. It's like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No problem. You can do it. No, no, I got it here. And handed me a check for the full amount, which back then it was like $15,000 for this year commit, which was 15 years ago. It's a lot of money now, but it's a lot of money then. And he said, here you go. And I remember my guts, everything inside was like, oh my God, like, okay, I can do this. Like there's value in this. And that shifted my mindset, my beliefs and everything. And that's where I started. And then I got involved in the city and I got involved with John Maxwell, became an executive director with him and have been
Oh,
shadowing him for 10 years, got involved in Success Magazine and the personal growth and development world. And it's just been evolving for the last, 15 years to where I'm at today. I did not have a vision that said, "Hey, I'm going to be talking to Fong. We're going to be doing peak potential success. We're going to be killing it. One day I'm going to be there." No, I didn't. I didn't really know where it was leading. And actually, I would tell you, in my 60s, it is still maturing and evolving. I think the greatest potential in my life, my peak potential, is still in front of me.
mm, that is
I
awesome.
really do. But it's not about building a business and building this big thing. For me, it's now about building lives.
Yep. Very, very true. And that
Again,
is
long answer, man. That
that is very, very incredible. And I love those stories because sometimes you just don't know where life is going to take you.
yep.
And it also speaks to saying yes, right?
Yeah.
Do you do coaching? Well, yeah, I do. Of course I do, kind of thing, right? Like lots of people would probably jump out, oh, no, no, that's not what I do. And then they give up that opportunity where there was already a vetted customer or client right there in front of you and you don't recognize it. Now, you mentioned that during that period of time, you agreed to coaching and you're helping this guy out, but at the same time, you're nervous.
Oh
You're
my
kind of,
God.
am I doing the right thing? I don't know about this. I don't know about that. You also mentioned at the beginning about that imposter syndrome. Every time you're putting this face out there, but you don't feel like
Yep.
what you're putting out there. So how do you overcome that?
Yeah.
Because every time you take on a challenge, every time somebody tries something new, every time somebody tries to learn something that they haven't learned before, they always have to go through that period of, is this me? Or
Yeah.
am I faking it kind of thing, right? So how do you overcome that and shorten that period of time so that it
Yeah.
does become you?
Fong, that's a great question, right? I really think that's the heart of everything in life, personally and professionally, because we all have areas of our lives where we have adopted and began to believe limiting beliefs. And we don't even know we have them, right? They're there. Everyone has them, but we've held them for so long that we call them normal. Like this is just normal life. So when that normal gets challenged and we don't realize it's a limiting belief, then we pull back or we that imposter syndrome comes up. We go, oh, that's not me, or I can't, or I've never, or I'm not, right? And we begin to sabotage the possibility and that potential that's in us because we have a belief that says, that's not me, or I can't do that. What I've found in this last 15 years of doing this is I would say almost 100%, but let's say 98% of the people I work with, that's not true. They actually have the ability, they have the potential, they have the knowledge, they have the skill set, they are capable of stepping into that, but they don't because their beliefs have told them, for whatever reason, this is not me or who I am. So they don't take the risk to step because they have all this evidence that says, look at my life. I've never been able to do X. So here's a framework, right? So this is what I've realized with people and the framework I use with coaching. First of all, you've got to be willing for those people that are out there listening, go, maybe that's me. I wonder if I have limiting beliefs. You do, and it's okay because we all do. I wonder if I'm living an imposter in these certain areas. You are, and we all do, and it's okay. It's not the end of the world, but when we can realize and go, no, that probably exists, that's the first step to us being able to then figure out what is it, how do I break through it? So then we have to challenge normal. So any of my clients, when I start talking to them, when I'm doing one-to-one or group coaching, even with businesses, businesses have this same principle, right? They've gotten to a level and they think, oh, I want to go to this next level, but I keep trying and I can't. And they think it's more systems and processes, which are important. But really what I've found working in the corporate world, breaking through is they can get all the systems and processes and platforms and all the technology they want. But if their mind doesn't believe they deserve and can be in that space, they're not going to get there. And if they do, they won't stay there because they will self-sabotage and bring their self down to their level of belief. So they have to be able to challenge normal, right? If you're willing to challenge your normal and you end up and it's still normal, it really is normal, you've lost nothing. But what if you challenge normal and you realize the normal you've been living under isn't normal and there is something greater? You've gained everything. But it begins with willingness to challenge normal, right? So asking that first question. So that's kind of where it starts. And then there's a framework I walk people through to help them identify what's keeping them from actually stepping into that as well. And I can share that as well, but let me just kind of stop with that and let you process that or see if you got another question with that.
Well, I will jump into that a little bit later. So when you're talking about asking that question of like challenging the normal, is that sometimes when you challenge the normal, another challenge that comes up is the people around you. And the people around you love you, they care for you, they want to keep you safe. And when you challenge the normal, they're the first ones to tell you don't. Because one is too risky, too scary, or it's not going to work, and all this other stuff. And they're not doing that to sabotage you. They're doing that to because they care. How do you overcome that challenge where, yes, you need to keep in contact with the people who love you, but you also need to kind of gauge what to listen to and what not to listen to?
Yeah, that's a great question because it's all the voices. There's so much noise out there all the time. And especially now with the phone, the internet, the chat world, their family, there's so much noise that we have to work through. So I guess what I'd tell them is I'd say, hey, you need to go connect with my friend Fong, and he's going to elevate your game and he's going to lift you up and he's going to help you get to that peak performance. I'm kidding, but I'm not.
Mhm.
It's about who you choose to allow to speak into your life. The hardest ones are our family, right? You may not be able to choose what they say to you, but you choose what you hold on to,
Right.
right? And so a big part of the process is who are you surrounding yourself with? And what are you allowing to speak into and over your life? You have control over that. It's not always easy, but you ultimately have control, right? And so you've got to do a self-assessment and you have to look at the world that you're in. And I don't know if it was Ziegler or one of them, Jim Rohn, he said, we're kind of the amalgamation or the product of the five people we spend time around with, right? And I don't remember exactly who said that, but I agree in principle. I think it's more than five people. But those people that you have in your world, your sphere of influence, the circles of influence you have in your life, examining that, being able to honestly look at that and go, are they calling me forward or holding me back? Are they and here's the thing is you said they're not trying to sabotage you or do that, but that's actually what they're doing and they don't mean to and they're not trying to, but that is what's happening, right? And so we have to be self-aware. And so we have to do an assessment of the people and the world around us of what we're taking in. And you have to ask yourself a simple question. Is this human, this person, doesn't matter if it's a mom or brother or sibling or, spouse, is this person speaking life and calling me forward, serving my future? Or is this relationship holding me back or calling me back? Is it giving life or is it taking life from me? You
For
have to
sure.
be willing to ask that question, right? Now, once you get that answer, now it's like, okay, now what do I do? This person is actually pulling life from me, pulling energy from me. Okay, and it's my mom or my brother or my spouse. Okay, then you have to understand you love them, but you understand there's certain things that conversations, certain things I'm going to have dialogue with that I'm probably not going to have a dialogue with directly because I know their response is, even though their heart is right, hopefully, their advice is actually coming from their weakness, their brokenness, their own areas of limiting beliefs that they're trying to superimpose on me without even realizing it. Again, not diminishing them or saying they're bad people, but recognizing that and go, okay, I have got to get around people like Fong and people like Rick and people who are going to call me forward and help me identify these limitations I have so that I can actually achieve that which I was born and created for and press through those areas, right? Because fear is not a bad thing. Fear is a positive thing in my life. I look at fear and go, okay, fear, this anxiety, the pressure of this unknown is not bad. It can be, but it's actually meant to motivate and compel, focus me and draw me through it
Mhm.
as opposed to sitting in it. So that I mean that's again, I don't know if that answers what you're asking, but that's it's kind of where I would say with people is they've got to self-assess
Mhm.
and take an inventory of what you're allowing in and the people you're allowing to speak. It doesn't mean you have to ostracize them. It doesn't mean you cut them off, but you may want to cut off certain conversations and you want to make sure that you are, 50% of those people that aren't feeding you, you need 51% of the people that are.
Right.
That they don't have anything to gain from you, yet they're serving and calling you forward. They're encouraging you to chase your dreams,
Mhm.
right?
Totally agree with all that stuff that you just said. I mean, I think I spent a period of about 2 years of just not feeding fires during a conversation like
Uh,
that or something. I remember right before that period of time, I was sharing real estate, business, blah blah blah, all this other stuff, and people just started looking at me funny. And I'm like, okay, this isn't working. I'm just gonna shut that all off and just wait. And then
yep.
eventually, when you start getting that success, when you start building what you wanted to build, they start coming back with questions for you. And it's like, now you're ready to listen.
Yeah,
So,
right. But you've
so
got to
it's
have
pretty neat.
a big thing with that fun is you've got to have enough value in yourself. So here's the thing I tell people all the time with coaching and everything else. When I coach and I look at transformation, leadership, and all that, you've got to be able to lead yourself before you lead others. And we're so quick to want to give and serve and go out here, and leadership is out here. And I said, it is, but it's built on what's in here. And if you don't value yourself, your gifts, your talents, your future, no one is going to put a higher value on you than the value you put on yourself.
Mhm.
So it all begins with your belief in you, your confidence in you. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be something that is driving from the inside out and spending time growing, learning, getting on podcasts, listening to your podcast, listening to what am I feeding this to strengthen this
Mhm.
so that when the world's noises come, there's something here that it's going to push against. It's going to fight and go, yeah, that may be what the world's saying, but this is what I'm saying and who I am. So I'd encourage all your listeners, don't underestimate the power of the personal transformation of investing in yourself and the knowledge, the information, the coaching, the relationships that are going to build your value and your worth. Because no one's going to value you greater than the value you put on yourself,
Exactly.
right? So I would really encourage people to see themselves as valuable.
What was it for you during that period of time of, let's say, feeding your mind? Because what you're just saying there was you throughout a daily routine or something, you're feeding yourself with certain podcasts, you're feeding yourself with books, you're feeding yourself with certain content and information so that you're armed against that negativity or armed against the contrast or what the masses think. What
Yeah.
was it for you that maintained your positive mindset or your protective mindset?
100%. So this is really important. We, again, devalue or underestimate the power of our words and our thoughts. Words and thoughts shape everything. Our actions. So here's kind of that framework I was talking about. Here's what happens. The outcomes we get in our lives, good or bad, the fruit of our life, what we get from our lives, from the things we do, are a direct result of our actions or behaviors. So we act or behave in a way that will produce something, good or bad, right? It's just neutral. This is where the next step is where we really got into. Our behaviors, our actions are a result of what we believe. So our beliefs drive every behavior. This is science. This is not Rick. This is actually how we're wired, that the beliefs we have drive our actions or behaviors. You cannot behave or act in a way contrary to what you believe, whether you recognize it or not. Now, my will is strong. I can behave and act in a way for a period of time that doesn't agree with what I believe.
Mhm.
But when life hits me, a punch in the gut, something happens, where do I go? I go back to that safe place of what I actually believe about myself, others, and the world around me. So beliefs drive behaviors, behaviors get outcomes. If we want different outcomes in our lives, we're tired of this thing in an area of our lives, what do we typically do? Behavior modification.
Right.
Change our behaviors, work harder, get up earlier, read more books, get more systems. And the truth is, you can't get a different outcome without changing the behavior. The problem is that simply changing our behaviors do not sustain an outcome. The way you sustain transformation or get an outcome that's sustainable is you've got to address the beliefs. Why do I share all that? Because our beliefs come from how we interpret our life's experiences, how we see them. Because when we look at life's experiences, good and bad, we begin to define those in a way that defines us. So we create a narrative in our head about our value and our worth, what we believe about ourselves, about others, and about the world. So when I say, what do we do and where did I anchor? When I realized that, I realized the biggest gift I could give myself was to identify some of the limitations and limiting beliefs and reframe, rewrite the narratives or the stories. Can I share a quick
Yeah,
story
for
about?
sure. Yeah, for
So
sure.
I told you about single mom, single gram. I'm 6 years old. My mom's working three jobs. She has to get help to take care of me because she's working leave. So she gets a babysitter. And this is in my book. She gets a babysitter and she trusts that babysitter to take care of me when she's not there, right? So mom trusts the babysitter. Well, when the abuse started by the babysitter at 6 years old, I didn't know what to do with that. So it's a traumatic experience. And at 6 years old, mom trusts the babysitter. So I trust the babysitter, yet something is happening that's not okay.
Right.
So now my mind has to interpret that experience. I must be broken. There's something wrong with me. I'm at fault. I'm not lovable. I'm not valuable. Women want to hurt me, and so I need to stay away from them. Whatever, all those things, right? That belief system at 6 years old that I start telling myself to understand what's happening to me, the real brokenness of what's happening, the trauma that played out in my life was because I believed I was at fault, I wasn't worthy, I'm not good enough. So then I start behaving all the way up. And this was really what drove that situation with all these relationships I said were broken. And I believed I wasn't valuable. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. So I put on the front that said, I'm going to show everybody I am. But I wasn't. And
Right.
then I met my future wife at 25 and I realized, wow, I took on a belief at 6 years old. So I needed to go back and ask myself a question. Are the beliefs I took on when the trauma happened, when this happened, were they based in truth? Not the experience, but what I told myself. I'm not worthy. I'm not valuable. I'm not lovable. I said, no, those are lies. Okay. So what did I do? I started reframing, going, I am valuable. I am worthy. I am lovable. Women are for me. And I started making new declarations and changing that story to reframe my life. And I then began to say, and I have these bracelets I wear. And so the bracelet says, I will, I can, and I am. And this is the foundation of my declarations that I started making. And I would tell everyone that's listening, how do we deal with this? What do we do? Listen to the words that you're saying. Listen to your conversations. If you find yourself saying, and for people who are listening, for the next 24 hours, you're going to hear yourself saying things like, oh, I can't do that. I've never done that. I'm not any good at that. You'll start seeing the places where you are saying that. Those are typically flags of limiting beliefs somewhere. And so that helps you identify there's something there because I said I can't, I'm not, I'll never. And I tell people, shift it. I will, I can, I am. I will is a declaration of intent. I'm going to do, I will, whatever. I can is a declaration of ability. Not only will I do this, but I can do it. I am is the most powerful declaration because it's a declaration of identity. So when I say our words have power, they do. And they're not just the ones we speak, but the ones we think. So the first thing I would tell people, if you do nothing else, pay attention to your words and start making new declarations over your life. And start with I will, I can, I am.
Very, very powerful stuff. Those are three very, very powerful statements right there, and very, very simple statements that
Very,
people don't realize how powerful they can be if only they treat it respectfully. And very, very, very cool story. And thank you for sharing all that. As a leadership expert and the limitless leader, I'm curious to hear what you think about these two very common yet contradictory statements. And that is, oh, leaders are born and then
haha.
leaders are made. So, what's your thoughts on both of those?
Yeah, I have that all the time. I get that all the time, right? And I have a leadership cohort that I do that's a 12-month long thing for people in the community. And that's the question everybody asks, leaders born or made? So I'm just going to give you a simple answer, both. But here's the truth. Actually, what I believe is everyone is a leader, period. From birth,
Mhm.
everyone is a leader. But now you've got to ask, how are you defining leadership?
Right.
If you Google the word leadership, honestly, anyone listening, go onto Google and put the word leadership in, you'll get 6 billion hits. It'll put the number up there. It shows the number. Last time I looked, it was 6 billion and something hits on the word leadership. So what does that tell us? It's searched a lot, but no one understands it. And everyone has a different definition. You look in the history of books that are written, there are more books written on leadership than anything else. And I'm not saying those are bad or good. It's not an opinion of that. But what that tells me is there's a lot of confusion around this understanding of leadership and how you define it or your organization defines it is how they're going to live it and it's what they're going to get. So when we start looking at, man, I don't have engagement with my employees and I've got this issue and that issue and don't have good leaders, you got to kind of look at yourself and go, how are you defining leadership? Because you may not have a definition for it, but you are leading in how you show up. So here's how I define leadership and why I say everyone is a leader. And I start there because leadership is about, and John Maxwell says, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing else. Influence. And he's right. I believe that. And so I agree with that because that's neutral. Adolf Hitler was a great leader based on that definition because he motivated and moved people towards horrific things, but he was able to influence culture and individuals towards something,
Right.
right? So leadership in itself is a neutral term. And if I believe at its core it's our ability to influence and impact people, then everyone is doing that all the time. There's never a time in our lives that we are not influencing and impacting people, either intentionally or unintentionally. Would you say
Right.
that's right? I mean, just in terms of that?
Yep, for sure.
So then the question becomes for me, and I do leadership development, saying, so then if you believe that that is the core of we'll just share that as a definition, influence and impact of people to move them towards an objective. Okay. Then the question you got to ask yourself is what objective are you moving them towards? Is it life or death? Is it good or bad? Are you calling people forward or holding them back? Because you are influencing people,
Right.
right? And so that's where I started. So then I've got to define for me what does leadership mean for Rick? And I help people create individual definitions.
Mhm.
Say it, write it, whatever you want it to be, because that's how you're going to show up in a space. Companies, define leadership for your organization. What does it mean? Is it simply transactional or is it transformational? Is it about growing people or is it about managing objectives? It is all of those, but I think the greater thing is you can be a great manager and be a terrible leader. But you cannot be a transformational leader, a peak potential leader. You cannot be a peak potential leader, a transformational, limitless leader, and not be a good manager. Because great leaders understand that leadership is about empowering and growing people to achieve objectives, not just managing people towards a task. And we get those confused. So again, long answer. So it's both. You can teach people leadership, but it all depends on how you define leadership. So the first question is, how do you define it? Based on that definition, let me give you an answer.
Very, very well said, and it kind of it fits both sayings because it's very, very true what you just shared there. I'm sure that my next question you kind of already answered parts of it, and we talked about it at the very beginning as well that you're going to come back to it. The roadmap to significance.
Yeah.
There's six very, very important questions. I'm sure you kind of mentioned some of those in between here and there. Could you share with us that? And then also, what is that blockage that stops people from achieving what they want to achieve?
So that whole process, right? The roadmap that I do is part of the coaching and it's built in. So there's when you when you think about when I'm coaching people who are trying to reach an objective, trying to get somewhere, trying to get from where they are to where they want to be, right? That's really what it is. You're coaching someone to help them get from their current reality, personally or professionally, towards an objective, right? So, in order to do that, you really have to ask certain questions to bring clarity to be successful in breaking getting there. Because typically, if they come to me and they finally get to me as a coach, they've been trying to get to that personally or professionally as a business or an individual for a while and they just can't seem to get there. There's something stopping them, or they get there and they can't stay there and they run into all these kind of roadblocks, right? And so the six questions that I work people through in that process are really clarifying things. And then within that is the coaching process. So let me start with this. It begins with the first one is the clarity of your destination. So imagine I'm in Houston, Texas, and I love Mexican food. You're up in Canada, right? And what town are you? What community? Are you in a big city?
I'm in Edmonton, Alberta.
Okay, so Edmonton, Alberta. Okay, so big city. I've been there. Okay. So for me, I love Mexican food. There are over 4,000 Mexican restaurants in Houston, Texas. So think about a GPS.
Mhm.
I can't put into the GPS best Mexican food. I'm going to get 60 things, right? Or whoever's opinion. But if someone tells me that the best Mexican food in Houston, Texas is Hugo's, right? And I'm going, okay, I want to go to Hugo's. I have to put in the GPS. I can't put best Mexican and hit route. I don't know where I'm going to go. I'm lost. I'll never arrive at my destination.
Right.
So I need to have a very specific destination, an address, right? If I put Hugo's, there's three of them in Houston, and I just put Hugo's, who knows which one I'm going to end up at? Right. And so I need the exact address. The reason I share that with you is because leadership, growth, development, breaking through limitations, our peak potential is found in the clarity of our destination.
Mhm.
You need to be very clear on what it is you're after. And what I've found is people are not very clear typically. It's more, I want to be the top in this. I want to be the best at that. I want to build this thing here. That's great. That's a dream. That's a vision. It's huge, but I can't measure it and I don't know when I've gotten there. There's no way for me to tell when I get there. So the first step is clarity of destination. Okay, so we talk about that, we clarify that. What is your destination? We work through getting it very clear, very specific. It could be a destination that you want to accomplish in 5 days. It could be a life destination. Doesn't matter. The clearer the destination, the better chance you have of actually arriving. So think about the GPS again. What else does a GPS need for you to be successful to get to that Hugo's restaurant? It needs two things. What's the other thing it has to have? And I'd ask you and ask your listeners as they're listening, what are the two things all GPSs have to get you to where you want to go?
Where you start and where you end up.
Perfect, right? So here's the thing, our current reality. I could know the address to Hugo's, but if I don't put that I'm sitting here in my home at this address in Pasadena, Texas, if I put I'm in Pearland or I don't put a start and a good location of where I'm actually at and I hit route, I'll never get there because it's going to route me from a different location.
Right.
So the second most important thing you have to be able to do, which is typically harder, is self-assess your current reality in relation to the destination you want to achieve. And that's harder. You got to ask some personal questions. I want this. This is where I'm at. You've got to build the parameters because that's how you build the bridge. That's the roadmap. How do I get from where I am to where I want to be? But if you're not absolutely understanding and clear and honest about where you are, personally or professionally, you will not get to where you want to be because this is foundation that's shaky. So I need clarity and clarity. Now I've got my bookends. Those are the two, right? So then I've got to go, okay, now I know that. What's the next question? Motivation. What is the motivation that's driving me to that destination? What will be the benefit of achieving it? What will be the loss if I don't? And you've got to make that tangible, right? There's internal and external motivations. There's positive and negative motivations. You need to define the motivation because here's the thing. If you've set goals for yourself, right?
Mhm.
To this podcast, you've got desires, you've got destinations. And then what happens when you start walking towards it? What happens typically in that journey? What do you end up encountering as you're trying to reach it?
Well, it's challenges, people who may not show up and stuff like that. Yeah. There's
Challenges, people
always
don't show.
something happens.
There's an obstacle, a roadblock. Think about the GPS. You're going along and there's a crash up there. And now there's a roadblock in your way. Life happens. And when life happens, we make a decision. How important is that destination? Am I going to turn my car around and go home? Or am I going to reroute and make sure I get there because I need to get there? That's motivation,
Right.
right? And so motivation has to be clear. And we typically start with negative motivations because that gets us moving. Like, oh my gosh, my heart is so bad, I could have a heart attack any day. That's a negative motivation that says, oh, I need to get on medication, start exercising, doing stuff. But what I've found is, and what's true is negative motivations do not sustain a change. There's negative will get me going, like, oh my gosh, I'm afraid I need to change. But a negative motivation is not sustainable over time. So you need to ultimately have a positive motivation. What will I get when I achieve this, get to this destination? What will it do for me, my family, and my future? And if you can anchor that in real tangibly, like you can taste it, smell it, touch it, feel it, then when the roadblock comes, you will do everything you can to go through it or around it. It will not stop you. So if that motivation isn't high enough, you will move on to something else. So clear destination, current reality, define your motivation. Now we've got all of those. We've got to build the map. We got to get there. There's three segments in that. The first one is that I ask is, what are the resources you have that will help you get from where you are to where you want to be right now? You don't have to buy them. You don't have to pay for them. You don't have to do anything. You have them in your disposal. And we brainstorm and list every resource they can think of. Relationships, services, products, technology, you name it. List it all. And then I have them look at all those resources you have. Say, tell me which ones you're engaging, right? Which ones are you actually using, right? And then which ones, if you used or engaged more intentionally, would actually move you closer to your destination. So I have them prioritize the resources they have based on the ones that will have the greatest impact in moving them towards accomplishing their destination. That's the resources they have. Because typically what I've found is people have all these resources and they forget about them and they're not even using them and they're wondering, why can't I get there? Next question. What are the resources that I need that I don't have? I need a coach or I need a platform. I need technology. I need money and investment. I don't know, but what are the things, man, these are things I don't have, but if I had some of these, it would really help me get to where I want to be. Same question, prioritize those.
Right.
Which one would have the biggest impact if you went and got this resource? Which one of these resources would have the greatest impact getting you towards your destination? And what do you need to do to go get it?
Mhm.
So resources you have, resources you need. Third one is where all the coaching happens. This is the magic sauce here because it's what are the obstacles in your way that if you do not deal with, no matter everything else is perfect, you got everything else ready to go, clarity, understood. But what are the obstacles that if you don't deal with or understand that no matter how perfect everything else is, you'll never arrive at your destination. And there's two types of obstacles. There's the external obstacles. I'm in Houston, so hurricanes, that's an obstacle. I got to be prepared. Like that could shut down my business or economy. They're outside of my control, but I need to have wisdom about. If this changes, it's going to impact my ability to get there. So I'm prepared and aware. Coaching starts with the next question. What are the internal beliefs that you have
Right.
that are keeping you from actually getting there? Because if they come to me, they've been trying to get there for a long time and they haven't been able to. So all these other things they've done at some level and they've worked through, but they still don't get there. What we uncover is, hey, you've never asked the question about what it is you believe about yourself, your team, your business, your vision that is actually keeping you from getting there.
Right.
And those are mindsets and beliefs. And that when I get to that question, that's where we start unpacking the real roadblock that is keeping them from success or significance or their peak potential. Right. And that's where then we go into the coaching process. So again, longer answer, but that's the roadmap that everyone needs to go through. But the secret sauce is in the willing to look at going, what do I actually believe about that destination that's keeping me from being there?
That is totally awesome. And thank you very much for sharing that and making it uh with the metaphor of the driving and the GPS, it makes it so much clearer for anybody who has questions because the way you explained it is literally step by step. And if you don't have one of these steps in play, then it really stops you from really reaching what you want to reach. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, man.
Uh,
I hope that's helpful.
our time has fly by really, really fast. I have a few other questions for you. First of all, I know you're working on some amazing stuff right now. Please share with us what can we look forward to?
Man, I am excited as I continue to try to figure out how to add value at this point in my life. And I've taken my entire life's experiences and I have put it in a repository of an app. The app is called Living Limitless, and it's got everything I've ever done. It's free. It's at least for now, it's free. I imagine I'm going to try to keep it that way, but it's an app that has all my world in there that I've ever done, my coaching, this framework, books that I've written, other books that I give out to people, just a lot of information. I built that more for me to take my whole last 45 years and put it in one place. So the app is really what I'm pressing, but the key with the app and is really what I'm finding is the most powerful thing that I did is I created a chat GPT disruptor. What I mean by that is I've created my own chat bot to offer as a coach 24/7 to people. There's a generation out there, and it's growing, who spends a lot of their life, and I spend a lot of my life in Chat GPT as well, right? Who spend a lot of their life looking for life answers, business answers, future, relationship, faith, stress, you name it, and they're going to Chat GPT or one of the GPT processes, right? That are out there, and they're asking it questions to help them in life, personally and professionally. I think that's great. I mean, it's amazing what you can pull into your world. And it is limited in that it is oftentimes fully dependent on the algorithm that's been set. It also pulls from good, bad, and ugly. It just takes this world and it drops it into you. It says, here's the answer to your question, but it has no emotion, no empathy, no feeling, no personal encounter, right? It just dumps information into you. And so it's good, but it's not, doesn't have that human touch. So I created what I call the Rick bot. And what I've discovered in this is I spent 5 months conditioning the brain and it does not search the World Wide Web when you ask it a question. Now, this is limiting, but it's also, if you know me and we built trust and we have a relationship, you understand I'm for you, not against you. And I'm only going to coach you in a manner that's going to help you get to where you want to go and speak life into you because that's what I do. So my whole life in there, my coaching, my ministry, my leadership, my business development, everything I've done is in there. I've conditioned it to speak like me. You can talk to it and it's this voice. So like if you go to it, Fong, you're gonna go, hey Rick, what's going on? I'm gonna talk to you. And it's a little hesitant, but you'll get it and you, oh, that's Rick. So this Rick bot, what I'm doing is I'm asking people, download the app. The first thing you're going to see when you download it is the bot, the Chat GPT, but it's me. And I want you to go to Chat GPT and ask it a question. Now, don't ask it how to make lasagna, because I don't make good lasagna, or how to change the oil. But personal growth, development, life, future, hope, dreams, business development, it's all in there. Ask it a question to Chat GPT, look at the answer. Open up the RickBot, ask it the exact same question, and I want you to compare the answers.
Mhm.
I want you to look at how they answer, because what you'll find is mine answers with first recognizing and seeing you and hearing you. I hear you, I see you, I understand. It'll tell a story of mine that, so again, really quick. I tested this. I've been piloting and testing this with the 20 somethings and 30 somethings. Gave it to a young single mom. She's 25 years old, has a child, working in a coffee truck, and wants relationship. And I don't know her real well, but a little bit of her story. I said, hey, do that for me. She goes, well, I go to Chat GPT all the time. I'm always asking it about stuff. I said, well, ask it a personal question. She asked my RickBot a personal question. She starts bawling. And I thought, oh my God, I've done something wrong. She's crying, working behind the counter. I said, are you okay? She goes, yes. I finally feel like I'm being heard and understood. And the way this responded to me was like a real human asking me questions and acknowledging. She said, the other thing is, you told me a story about you being a child of a single mom and what your mom did and how she helped you and how you became this. And now I know you and I'm looking at you. And she's bawling. She said, there's hope for me
Wow.
as a single mom. That's the answer. Then I asked her questions. I gave her suggestions that she could go, but I want people to go download Living Limitless, go to the Rick bot. There's tons of stuff there, but go there first. Ask something personal. You'd ask ChatGPT, look at your answer and ask Rick. Look at the answer and tell me which adds the greatest value to you, that you feel most connected with, and you feel valued, seen, heard, and understood. That will take care of it. If they will just do that, I've 100% of the people that I've had do that with in small sample size have all said, this is where I'm going to go to have my conversations. And it's 24/7 anonymous, but that's how I would say, come and check it out, Living Limitless, check out the Rick bot, and then let's talk from there.
Wow. That is exciting stuff right there, and I'm hoping everybody checks it out and talks to Rickbot. So thank you very much for sharing that too. Before I let you go, I got five quick rapid fire questions. Give me the first thing that
Uh-oh.
comes to mind.
All
You're
right. I
stranded,
promise I'll keep them in like 5 words or less. I'm ready.
stranded on a deserted island. One food to eat for the rest of your life, no consequence.
Strangers and I, one food, the rest of my life, no consequence. Key lime pie.
Ooh, very specific. Nice. Hollywood calls and goes, "Hey, Rick, we love your story. Very, very inspirational. We could do a whole biopic of you. Who do you want to be casted to play you?"
Who do I want to be casted to play me? Oh man. Matthew McConaughey.
McConaughey shows up at your door and goes, "Hey, buddy. All right, all right, all right. Let's get going. Let's get to know each other. Let's hang out." What does that night look like between with you and McConaughey?
And probably with him, it's going to be a talking about our stories, our life, our families. It'll be a little bit about the Texas Longhorns because I'm an Aggie. So we'll probably butt heads a little bit. I'm not an Aggie, but I support the Texas A&M and he's a Longhorn. So we'd have a little conversation about that. He'd probably lose the conversation, right? And then I think it would be a lot around because he talks a lot about the same stuff I do in terms of value, worth, and identity of people. And I think we would have an amazing conversation of how can we leave the greatest impact and affect the greatest change in lives in a positive manner.
Mhm.
And what would that look like? I think that would be our conversation.
Awesome. Well, that conversation goes hours and hours, and all of a sudden he's hungry. And you go, "Hey, buddy, no worries. I got the meal all set out. Let me fix it up." So what's that special dish that you could do?
Key lime pie.
Out comes the pie. All right. Last question. Give me a
I would just
number.
start with dessert, and we'd have some key lime pie and maybe a little sushi in there that we'd rock because I love some sushi and some fresh pulled noodles. So I'm into the Vietnamese food, so that's probably what I'd go to. But we'd start with the key lime pie and end with key lime pie.
Sounds good. Give me a number from 1 to 4.
3.
One, two, three. So the word is pets. So if you have to
Okay.
use the word pets as a metaphor for success, how is success like pets?
Man. So I'm going to use pets and I'm going to think about a dog. And what I would say the metaphor for pets and a dog would be the posture they take in serving their master, serving something greater than themselves, their loyalty, their humility, their passion and energy for what they do and who they are. Those are all foundational principles of leadership in life: humility, passion, loyalty. Those are the things that I would think about. And so that would be the metaphor for life is, man, if you're going to be the greatest peak potential performer of your life, be like a dog.
I see. That's how success is like pets. Thank you very much, Rick. Any final words from you? What's the best way for people to get in touch with you, get your book, and all that great stuff?
Yeah. So, one, download the app that puts you into my world or follow me on social. We've got a new campaign we're putting out there, and it's Rick Torrison. It'll be in the show notes. I'm sure you can get that. I do have a book called Born Limitless. It's all there. Really, what I want you to do is get into that app. And the last thing I would say to everyone that's listening, hopefully they found some value, and I want you to reach out, to Fong and get involved in his world and what he's doing. But this is what I want you to know. I believe this with all that I am. It's why I do this, that your best is yet to come, that you were created for more, that you were born limitless. You weren't created for more stuff and things. You were created for influence and impact, a future and a hope. And my desire is to help you, as I know Fong is with what he does, help you walk into that future and hope that you can have the greatest impact and leave the greatest mark of success and significance in your life. And so, any way I can serve you, I know Fong, you're probably the same way. Any way we can serve you to get there, let us know and let's go get it done.
Ditto. Nicely done. Thank you very much for all that. It was a blast speaking with you and hearing your stories and just learning all the wisdom that you have. So thank you very much for your time and like again, your stories. Once
Thank
again,
you.
he's Rick. I'm Fong. Until next time, today is the day to lock your peak potential. We'll see you later.